A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
I'm Richard, and this is A Space to Speak Your Mind, a radio show and podcast about mental health and well-being made by people with lived experience in association with Cornwall Mind. We do cover subjects on the show that some listeners may find distressing. For more information, help and support, you can visit cornwallmind.org. And on this month's show, I'll be finding out about the power of positivity with expert in positive psychology and board member at Action for Happiness, Vanessa King. Dr Amir Khan will be telling me how taking a break for our summer holidays can help our mental health. Jerry Padfield, lived experience coordinator at Cornwall Mind, will be speaking to Dr Jeremy Sandbrook about his involvement in the community mental health transformation. I'll be finding out the effect of hair loss on our mental health with Jordanna Corbella, hairstylist and author of the Mindful Hairdresser. As we look back on Pride Month, I'll be asking if employers are doing enough to make the workplace more welcoming for the LGBTQ community with Head of Employer Insights at Indeed UK, Stacey. All that on the way here on A Space to Speak Your Mind.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
Now, it will probably come as no surprise that we turn to our phones several times a day, and luckily we can get our positivity boost on the go and at the click of a button. In fact, for an important mood boost, we spend an average of 2 hours a day seeking out positive content. To find out more, I'm now joined by Vanessa King, who's an expert on positive psychology. Thanks for being here, Vanessa.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
So are we using our mobile devices to actively seek out positivity online?
Yeah, well, some recent research by Sky Mobile found that about 56% of us consume positive content via our smartphones. So I love the expression somebody had is pick me up in my pocket. So it can be. But of course, we need to be very conscious about how we're using our phone and use it intentionally rather than kind of on autopilot.
That is the great thing, isn't it, about having the mobile phone? There are times that we do just need a little bit of an extra boost. So can you tell me more about our online habits and how are we seeking our positive mood boost?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting, really, because, of course, things like kind of fun memes, cute pets, kind of things that make us laugh, even nostalgic pop culture, those songs and things from our youth can give us a boost and people are at their go-to sources. But I was really encouraged to see that there was also people are seeking out videos and memes of random acts of kindness. So more than a fifth of people are actually consciously going to look at acts of kindness videos, which is great because it's very easy to get bogged down in the news and about how dreadful things are going on, dreadful things people are doing. But when we see acts of kindness, not only does it help us feel a sense of connection, feel a sense of hope that there are good people in the world, but it actually makes it more likely that we'll do something kind for others. And I love there's a Mark Twain, I think, famously said that if you want to cheer yourself up, cheer someone else up, which is so acts of kindness can do that as well. And of course, we can use our phones to kind of lift other people up.
It's also great to see their reactions as well when a stranger just something that they weren't expecting, just something positive, and just to see their face and their expressions and just how much it means to them.
Yeah, I mean, we all need to feel seen, to be cared for, and we also need to care for others. So feeling a sense of human connection is one of the most important things for our psychological well-being. I mean, it means different things for different people, but I think that's it, is our using our phones, for example, to cultivate our connections with our friends and our family, people that care for us and we care for, rather than just following celebrities or influencers.
It's also kind of interesting as well, the times of day that we're looking at our content, because I know we're told not to use our phones before we go to bed, but actually seeking out some positive content before we put our phones down for the evening is not a bad idea.
No, absolutely. I think the research found that a really popular time to access positive content was between, I think, 7 and 9 in the evening, which is great. It's not immediately before bedtime, assuming people kind of go to bed sort of after 10, most people. But it's actually about, switching our minds out of the worries of the day and our to-do lists and the washing up and all that stuff. And actually kind of let's get a little boost here, which can switch our mind off from those worries and help us, put us in a frame of mind to kind of get a better night's sleep. There was also, I think, the second most popular time was actually first thing in the morning to get a positive boost, because, of course, that can start your day off in a kind of uplifting way.
Yeah, definitely. I like that idea because we're always told to do something positive in the morning, whether it be some exercise, actually having a good mindset by looking on our phones and getting some positive content before we go out for our run, or walking the dog or whatever we might do. That might just give us that extra smile. And again, going out and being with people, if we've got a smile on our face, that might resonate with other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we know our mood has a ripple effect out to others. So knowing what we can do to kind of manage our mood is really important. So it doesn't mean to say that we have to kind of full smiley face all the time. Absolutely not. But kind of checking in on how we're feeling and knowing what we can do to kind of manage it is not just for us, it's for others too.
And we're looking for new content, but some of us are revisiting old content. I like this idea. Why do you think we're doing this?
It's a mixture. I mean, it's great to have some go-to sources that when you need a boost or you need some inspiration, you've got some go-to sources. But we also, as human beings, need a bit of variety too. We get used to the same thing. I mean, technically it's called we habituate to the same things, but and each of us will have a different need for variety. So it's great. I mean, one thing that our phones in our pocket do is they give us access to such a wide range of things that we can do that give us an uplift. It's not just about those pet and cute kitten videos. It's also about things that we can learn. I mean, you can actually even learn a lot about the science of happiness through your phone. I mean, Action for Happiness, the charity and social movement that I'm part of, has masses of free resources, all based in evidence. And it's a really great positive community. And in fact, one thing people might be interested to try is a free, it's called 10 Days of Happiness, little program. It's a couple of minutes a day. You get a little video, short video, introducing you to one of the 10 keys to happier living, our sort of framework of actions to take for happiness. So you get a little introduction to that lovely little video, and then a suggestion for an action to try that you can craft and make your own, and then a space to kind of reflect on how that feels. And we know even though it takes just a few minutes a day, over 10 days, people that completed the course definitely felt a boost to their well-being.
I mean, that sounds great because they're just small snippets and quite manageable. Just having something that you can focus on for the day and achieve that and then move on to the next thing. That's a really great idea.
And you can even do it on your commute. You know, that's kind of what it's designed for. And it's an introduction. I mean, there's lots more that you can get involved in Action for Happiness. We have groups, we have courses and things that people can access in their communities. It's all community based. There's also an app actually, which shares a daily action. So based on our framework, the 10 keys to happier living, of the actions that we can take, we have a daily action. We have a calendar. We have an action for each day of the year based on the 10 keys. The app, which again is free for anybody with a smartphone, gives you a little suggestions for action. And there's a fantastic community of over 100,000 people sharing kind of what they've tried, what they've noticed and supporting. It's a very positive place to be, not just false positivity. It's a kind of, it has a sense of a genuine online constructive community, as I would call it.
Again, that's a great thing to have a community so that you can get ideas from other people and share experiences that you've had. But we've got to be careful with our smartphones as well, don't we? We have to have that healthy habit and not always be focused on our screen all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I mean, you know, how long have we had our smartphones? Probably 10, 15 years, maybe. Our brains kind of take a lot longer than that to evolve. So we've kind of jumped straight into this technology. And of course, it's designed, you know, with lots of psychology in it to make it really to kind of capture our attention, keep our attention. So we have to be very choiceful and intentional about what we're accessing and when we're accessing it. So that's one of the reasons why I was really encouraged to see this research, Sky Mobile conducted, that actually we are choosing to not just get involved in the kind of other stuff, the general stuff that's going on, but actually consciously choosing to access positive content, to actually use our phones to connect and share sort of nice things with others. And also 35% of people said that they've unfollowed a social media account that actually wasn't making them feel good, was actually making them feel bad. So that's really encouraging. So just be choiceful. Notice how you feel when you're accessing your phone or social media. And if it's not making you feel good, switch it off or delete it from your phone. Be choiceful and don't be afraid to take a break or take a pause. You know, that sometimes taking a step back and think about, oh, you know, this is how I want to use my phone. This is when I want to access this stuff. And actually, sometimes I just want to be present in the kind of real world day to day, as it were.
I think as well, you know, we do have that habit, I do it myself, of checking the news every morning. And obviously the news isn't always a good source. But if you've got content that you've either saved or, as you say, specific content that you know is uplifting that you can follow. And as you say, if there are ones that are getting negative or not putting you in the right frame of mind, then, as you say, just unfollow them. Just don't bother with them. That's the best way, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Build a habit, you know, kind of think, right, okay, I'm going to check the news in the morning. I'm going to check it in the evening. And then maybe after the morning, you think, right, I'm going to download the Action for Happiness app and get my little daily action to try and maybe some inspirational content that I'll dip into for a few seconds after I've accessed the news. Because it's really important that we think, yeah, there's lots of stuff that's out of our control. that's happening. And that can really feel overwhelming and make us feel difficult. So finding that there are small things that we can do that make a tiny difference to us and to maybe even a difference to someone else that actually helps us feel a bit more resourceful, a bit more hopeful. And that's as much as most of us can do.
So just remind us again the places that we can go to find out more from what you've been talking about today.
Check out actionforhappiness.org, the website, or download the app, it's Action for Happiness app, or Google 10 Days of Happiness, the little program that I mentioned.
And also, because you are an author, you have a book about all this kind of stuff. So just tell us about what the book is and where we can find it.
Yeah, I've got a few books, but the one that I really suggest that really connects with what we've done today is the book on the 10 keys to happy living. This is the framework I helped develop for Action for Happiness, the areas we can take action. And the book's really practical. It's kind of an insight, if you were interested in the science, little insights into the science and reflections and lots of practical actions that you can dip into. You don't need to read it from cover to cover. So it's really, I kind of think of it as a practical handbook for happiness, if you like. So I'd really love people to have a look at that and let me know what they think.
Well, it'd be great to have you back on the show. But for now, Vanessa King, expert on positive psychology, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
A space to speak your mind.
So it's a space to speak your mind. I'm joined by Dr. Amir Khan. Good to have you on the show.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for having me.
A lot of us are looking forward to a summer holiday after the restrictions that have been in place in the last couple of years. So why are holidays so important to us and our mental health?
Well, I think most of us, after 2 years of perhaps not going on holiday, have realised how important holidays are. That break from work, that break from our normal everyday kind of routine is really, really important for our mental health. We're designed to take breaks. We're not designed to do the same thing every single day. Variety is key, and just kind of moving away from your routine, whether that is relaxing somewhere and doing nothing, or whether that's being active somewhere, is really important.
And what specifically is it about our time in nature and also the great outdoors that helps us to relax?
So I'm a big advocate for spending time in nature. And as a doctor, it has to be evidence-based for me if I'm recommending it to people. So what we know when we spend time outdoors is that physiological changes happen inside of us that make us feel calmer, relaxed, and even happier. So our stress hormones go down, particularly cortisol. So that makes us feel more relaxed. Our heart rate slows, our breathing slows, and our happy brain chemicals, serotonin and dopamine, start to go up. So we feel a bit more zen. And in terms of our mental health, we know that spending time outdoors is good for things like anxiety, low mood, depression, in conjunction often with conventional medical therapy as well. Or if you are just feeling stressed, spending time outdoors and really connecting with nature. I think that's the important thing, because you can go out there and not actually get the benefit if you're not immersed in it. You've got to really focus on the sound of the birds or the wind through the trees or feel the bark of a tree. You know what I mean? It has to be real immersion. It can't just be walking through woods, talking to your mate, or going on your phone and catching up on your emails while you're in a woodland. It has to be full immersion.
Yeah, and we're so lucky down here in Cornwall. We've got the coast. We've got so much open space as well. And really, there is this thing now about green prescribing. So can you explain what that is and whether that might be rolled out across the UK?
Yes, so it is starting to be rolled out across the UK. So it's part of the social prescribing umbrella that we're doing in the NHS. And that's looking and managing patients' health in a much more holistic way and connecting them with things in their community. And where green prescribing kind of fits into that is looking at local green spaces that we can ask patients to visit and spend time in. And that's often in conjunction with wildlife charities. And so if we think as healthcare professionals that a patient with a certain medical condition, or even if they're just suffering from social isolation, may benefit from spending time in a green space, perhaps as part of an activity that a charity is doing, then we would recommend it and we would point them in the right direction of how to get in contact with them, or we would make that contact for them. And the benefits are proven. So it's not just kind of this woo-woo medicine that people like. It's proven evidence-based practice that we're doing.
And as part of Cornwall Mind, we run physical activity groups. So we do quite a lot of physical activity, whether it be gardening groups as well, all sorts of things. So really just being out in that open space is amazing. And you've had some time out in open space. You've recently been to British Columbia. So tell me about that experience and what made you want to go there?
I have, incredibly lucky. Canada's one of those places that's been on my bucket list forever. But I was lucky enough to visit British Columbia, which is nature on a much, much larger scale. I live in Yorkshire and it's absolutely gorgeous, much like Cornwall, where you have an abundance of natural spaces. And British Columbia is like that, but so much bigger in that it's got huge mountain ranges with the Canadian Rockies. We've got really vast forests that are wild and full of things like bears. And we were lucky enough to see puma paw prints. We only saw the paw prints. And then there's the beaches and then there's the seas. And we went out on boats and we saw whales and sea otters and seals. And it was just incredible. So spending 2 weeks out there, and again, a natural environment that I'm not used to, but so big, just allowed me to kind of forget about the stresses of my day-to-day life, working in a busy inner city surgery and all the bits and pieces that come along with that. Lots of people have really busy, stressful jobs. So a break like going to British Columbia was really good for me. And that's why I'm talking about it, really, because I've come away refreshed. Sometimes you come back from a holiday and you go, God, I need another holiday. It definitely wasn't like that. It was like the opposite of that. So I came back and thought, God, I don't mind going to work now because I've had a break. And that is a new feeling for me as well.
We do need that, don't we? We need that time just to unwind, to take our minds off the daily things that we have to do and just have a bit of a reset sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Everybody is busy, whether that's work, whether that's family, whether you're caring for someone. And it can get really stressful, the day-to-day work, waking up knowing you're doing the same thing as you did yesterday and then the same thing again tomorrow. So having a break from that is so important. And I was lucky enough to go to British Columbia, but you don't have to. Any kind of break is good. So whether that is a local holiday or just time off from your routine and doing things you enjoy doing, if you can spend time in nature as part of that, you will feel the benefits of it. Trust me, it's all, like I say, evidence-based.
And I think, as we've said, we all deserve a little bit of a break, whether it just be for a day or a weekend, but as much time as we can have just to switch off. And I know international travel isn't great at the moment, so maybe it's something that, as you say, if we can be a bit more local and support our local area a bit more, or just go to other parts of the country that we haven't visited, I think that would be a great thing for this summer.
Absolutely. Britain has some beautiful places. You can visit Cornwall for one. But yeah, if you're lucky enough to be able to go abroad, do your research first. Look at which airlines are flying. Look at who's cancelling. Look at what's going on at the airports, because we are in tricky times when it comes to travel at the moment. If you are lucky enough to go like I was, I would recommend it. But if you can't, any time as a break from your day-to-day routine is good for you.
So if people want to find out more about what we've just been talking about, is there a website that they can go to?
If you want to find out more about British Columbia and it's somewhere you're thinking of going or just want to see some nice pictures, go to hellobc.com.
It's also been proven just looking at pictures and experiencing the things online can give us that mood boost as well. So if you're not able to go over there, then just having a look at the pictures can give you a little bit of a mood boost as well, I would say.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Looking at pictures of green spaces is also good for you.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Amir Khan, for being here on the show.
Thank you, Richard. It's been a pleasure.
A space to speak your mind.
In our May show, we talked about the community mental health transformation, what it is and what's involved. If you missed the programme, you can hear it on our May podcast. Just search for A Space to Speak Your Mind. We're on Apple, Google or Spotify podcasts. And now in our continuing feature on the community mental health transformation, it's time to hear from Jerry Padfield, Lived Experience Co-ordinator at Cornwall Mind.
A space to speak your mind.
I'm joined today by Dr. Jeremy Sandbrook, and would you just like to introduce yourself? What do you do on the transformation?
Hi, Jerry. Yeah, I'm a psychiatrist, so I'm a medical doctor with training. My specialist area is supporting people with mental health difficulties. I've been a community mental health team psychiatrist for about 8 years before I joined the team as the medical representative. So I'm representing doctors, and on our team we also have nurses, psychologists, people from different backgrounds. But my role on the team is to represent psychiatry and to bring the experience that I have.
So I'm going to try and ask this to everyone that I talk to about the transformation, but could you tell me what the community mental health transformation means to you in your own words?
Well, the four big words that I always use when I'm talking about the community mental health transformation are integration, collaboration, co-production, and system. So those are the words that come to my mind first off. So obviously, this is a program of activity that we are doing to try and make our system better. I use the word system because to me that's really important, because historically what has happened is we have lots of services that are not joined up to make a system. I want the different services that are available and the people that use them to be joined up to make a better system. And I want this change that we do together to be done together. That's where co-production comes in, so designed and delivered together, and to be based on integration and collaboration. So making sure that the different parts of the system overlap wherever they need to and are not separated or siloed, which creates gaps, and doing this in the spirit of collaboration. So we're not doing it because we're being paid to do it in a certain way. I'm not interested in money, or commissioning would be the word that the NHS uses. I want to make a better system through collaboration, so through doing things together.
What does this mean in real terms, I guess, for people's treatment? If they come to the mental health system, if you like, for the first time, how is that going to look different from, say, 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
Well, I want it to be easier to get the right help at the right time and also in the right place. So I don't want people to have to wait. I don't want people to have to be turned away. I don't want people to feel they're being bounced for different parts of the system. We don't want people to feel they have to tell their story over and over. We don't want people to feel rejected or abandoned, or the feeling that they're not important. We obviously recognise that there are lots of different people trying to access help and support for their mental health, and they have different difficulties and different levels of severity. But we need to make sure the right help is available for everybody. That's very easy, well, relatively easy to say, very difficult to do. But if you want to stop people bouncing between different parts of the system, this concept of integrating and collaborating and working as a system rather than a separate group of organisations or siloed services is really, I think, where you get to the heart of how you address that problem.
I think a lot of people listening to this who might have had experience of mental health services in the past would be quite enthused or excited about some of those ideas, especially things like not re-traumatizing, not having to tell your story to every new person you meet, and things being joined up and things easier and not having to wait. But how realistic is that? I mean, we all know the NHS as an organisation is always fighting for money. So how realistic is this change?
Well, that's a really important point. I mean, fighting for money, actually, at the moment, let's be honest, we're not trying to build a new castle on a level piece of ground. We're trying to build something new on a hole in the ground, and we haven't got that many bricks to build it with. What we do have is motivation and willing, but we haven't got many staff. We haven't got enough good quality buildings. We often haven't got the strength in the communities, organisations that we want to work with. Certainly in Cornwall, there's a very variable stuff available to people. What you've got in one town or village, you haven't got in another, is what I'm trying to say. So I can very much understand why people would be sceptical about that. I guess the fundamental principle is if we do things together, then we can be more efficient, more present and more available. If we broaden the size of our system by bringing in more organisations and communities and people from outside of health, that could help. And if we involve people that use or have used our services in doing that as well, then that will also give us much more resource together to try and be available for people when they need us. I don't know if that reassures people or not. I mean, one of the main problems we have in the NHS is we haven't got enough staff. We've got spare money because we can't employ staff. But this is all, in a way, because of the difficulties that we're facing, slightly to do with the pandemic, slightly to do with the cost of living crisis, slightly to do with the fact we live in Cornwall, which is a real problem because housing is so expensive in Cornwall that people can't afford to live here to work in the NHS.
Are you optimistic about the outcomes of the transformation?
Yes, no one's going to wake up in the morning and the world will be completely different in next April or whatever. It's going to be an evolution, not a revolution, and it's going to take time. But I am optimistic. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think it could work. And I genuinely believe that by developing services so that help and support is more readily accessible, concept of front-loading the system is a term I would use, making it easy to access help quick and early. That should promote efficiency, and it should make the resources that we've got go further, and it crucially should make it easier for people to access help and support as well.
You mentioned that you're quite enthusiastic about this. Do you think there's a large appetite, if you like, amongst the wider NHS mental health staff in Cornwall for this project?
Yes and no. I think people are tired, people are weary, people are fatigued. Working in the health service is probably harder now than it ever has been in anyone's working life. I'm not trying to, get my violin out and have a plea for sympathy. Many people are having difficult lives for all sorts of different reasons. But we are working in a system under strain, and we have people who are fatigued when it comes to change. Many people think that NHS-type initiatives come along every so often and they probably just ignore them as the latest thing. So there's all of that. But at the same time, I think there's a real need to change, and I think there's a real appetite to make things better. And particularly when I talk and work with people from outside of health and we get in the room together, as it were, the sparks do often start to fly in a really positive way about the fact that people do want to make the system more responsive and more available and work better. So I am excited by it. To be honest with you, I oscillate. Sometimes I think, oh God, is this going to work? But in the main, I remain enthusiastic. But the pace of change also does seem to be a bit slow. But that's just the way things go, it seems.
So can I ask you two questions related to what you just said there? So my first one is, what excites you the most about the community mental health transformation?
What excites me the most is being able to deliver help to people that have fallen in the gaps. Because I think, in my experience of working in community mental health teams, we've got so used to there being people that fall in the gaps that we've kind of just become accustomed to it. But actually, those people are getting the worst service. They're not even the people, the lowest severity problems or the highest. They're actually the ones in the middle. And often there's a huge number of people there that sort of don't get a good deal. And I really believe that part of the reason they don't get a good deal is because the services themselves are overstretched and have to waste energy putting in drawbridges and moats to keep them out. If we could get rid of that, I think that would be really helpful. I think it would make, obviously, we'd address a huge unmet need in the population, in our communities. There'd be lots of people that would get a better service and wouldn't get this bouncing around, but also we'd have a better system and it would be more enjoyable to work in it because you wouldn't have these sort of conflict type or difficult scenarios. No one person or one team is going to be able to say yes to everybody for everything. But if we move to a sort of system where we're not building up walls and fighting against helping people, we have a much more open and integrated model. That's what excites me and I think could make a difference. And I know from talking to people in other parts of the country and other parts of the southwest that they've managed to achieve that. I'm hoping it's going to work.
And so my second question, kind of the flip side of that, if you like, is what is the biggest challenge you see for the mental health transformation?
The two things that come to mind are maintaining momentum in this difficult time, because it is a difficult time. I suppose I'm coming mainly from the NHS perspective, where people really feel in a lot of services and teams that their tank is really low on gas when it comes to energy, and people are leaving. A lot of people are leaving the NHS because A, they're tired, but B, it's not all about money. But you can get paid more money working in a supermarket than you can at the start of your nursing career quite easily, and that's not cool, is it, in terms of valuing people and retaining our staff? So that's a real challenge, and the momentum and the energy, I suppose, is linked to that. But I tend to find more momentum and energy when I work with people from outside of the NHS. So it's very welcome that we're doing that more and more. So I like doing that. What I would say is I'm sure people are sceptical, and we all have to be realistic. You can be realistic without being sceptical. I mean, we should be realistic. It's a lot easier to say than it is to do. And we've got lots of barriers to overcome, not least in terms of how organisations have been set up over years and decades. But I think there is willing, but there needs to be willing at all levels. I guess I'm sort of consider myself to be a sort of middle level, but we need to have the organisations at the top levels ready to integrate, and we need to have the people at all levels keeping the conversation alive and keeping the motivation and the energy going. So that's hopefully something we can collectively do.
And I guess we need the kind of participation as well as of the people who are receiving treatment or co-producing the treatment in the future, which is a difference that you couldn't have said in the past. Maybe people are being listened to more and being involved more in their own treatment.
Yeah, people being more involved in their own treatment, and then people with lived experience being more involved in shaping and also delivering as well, because that's such a valuable area. There haven't been opportunities to use all of that resource. I don't want people to feel they're being described as a resource, but so many of our staff have lived experience, and now we have new people with lived experience coming to work for us who previously weren't staff, and it really has a very valuable dimension to providing care and support.
Yeah, I prefer to use the term assets rather than the term used, because I'm now in some of those meetings, and I think one of the things that lived experience brings is that some of those taboos and stigmas, like you say, a lot of the staff, just by sheer kind of nature of statistics, are going to have lived experience of mental health too. And so some of those conversations, people are feeling more able to reveal some of their lived experience, and those conversations are going along very different, or hopefully slightly different lines than they might have done in the past, when there was still that stigma about talking about your own lived experience.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it's becoming much easier for people to talk about their own experiences, but also to allow their own experiences to openly inform their professional opinions.
Thanks very much for your time and for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me. Thanks a lot.
Thanks to Jerry, and you can find out more about the community mental health transformation at cornwallmind.org.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
This summer marks the 50th anniversary of Pride, an historic event where over 2,000 people took to the streets of London in 1972 to campaign for equal rights for the LGBTQ+ community. The Pride movement has continued to grow over the past 5 decades and has aided changes in legislation and society to broaden LGBTQ+ rights, such as the 2010 Equality Act, which legally protects people from discrimination in the workplace based on gender or sexual orientation. While we've come a long way as a society regarding inclusivity, it's apparent there's still some way to go to ensure all members of society feel accepted and valued in the workplace. New research has uncovered that 21% of the LGBTQ+ community feel their mental health is currently a barrier for them at work, with 40% currently experiencing mental health challenges. Anxiety, depression, burnout and panic attacks are many of the experiences that affect the LGBTQ+ community in connection to the world of work. To talk about this is Danny Stacey, who's Head of Employer Insights at Indeed UK. Thanks for joining me on the show, Danny.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So at the end of Pride Month, what are we finding out about the experiences of the LGBTQ+ community in the workplace?
Well, we completed a huge piece of research. So working in tandem with YouGov, reaching out to thousands of people in the UK to try and gather their thoughts, their lived experiences. And we took the data, we've sliced it up. And there were some really interesting findings in there. I think one of the key findings was that a third of people identifying as LGBTQ+ have not come out in their workplace for fear of being harassed or discriminated against. And we're not necessarily talking about a gay man walking into the office and saying, hey, I'm gay, but actually even down to a man being able to be asked the question, what did you do at the weekend? And feeling uncomfortable or embarrassed to say, well, me and my husband went for dinner, for fear of some kind of retribution, or that colleagues or leaders might use that against them for future opportunities or career progression. So I think the UK has moved in a really positive way over the last 50 years, but a lot of work still to do.
So would you say that workplaces are broadly inclusive places? I mean, from what you're saying, it seems that it's the workforce, or does it come from a higher level? Are we just not acknowledging people from the community?
I think there's a real mix. And hey, I've got to be honest and stay positive. As I've said, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary, when we're thinking about Pride right now and think about what happened in 1972, the world has changed a lot. The UK has changed a lot, but you're right. The environments within the workplace are still not as inclusive as they be. There's very few work environments, I'd argue, that are truly equitable. And one of the problems with that is that organizations are not truly understanding the effects on mental health, for example. Because we've seen from our survey data that actually an overwhelming number of people who identify as LGBTQIA+ are suffering from mental health challenges right now. And part of that is not being able to come to work and be your true self, having to hide a really important part of yourself when you're going into the workplace, from colleagues, from leadership, for whatever reasons that might be. And in turn, you have then people feeling unhappy, demotivated, mood levels dropping, which means productivity is going to take a hit. It means innovation is taking a hit. And it actually means that your profitability takes a hit. So organizations really need to think about how they can create inclusive organizations, because there's a lot of onus now on hiring diverse talent. I see it all of the time, and that's great. But I do think inclusion is a prerequisite to diversity. You can hire all the diverse talent you want, but if you haven't built that inclusive environment where people can share their experiences, talk about who they really are, then what's going to happen is people are going to get frustrated. They're going to leave you. And actually, they're going to tell others about what a negative experience they had, which in turn is going to reduce the number of people that want to come and work for you in the future.
I think if people, they're not happy, they just don't feel maybe valued, or they don't feel that they're their true self. So, I mean, what are the ways it's manifesting as far as mental health? What kind of things are we seeing?
Yeah, so to share very candidly for you for a moment, my uncle, a similar age to myself, mid-30s, he took his own life in 2019. And on the face of it, like so many tragic stories now on social media, to talk to it, everything kind of seemed to be okay. And then when we got the tragic news and we heard from the police, some of the messages he'd been receiving, he was being incredibly bullied. Now, that wasn't necessarily a workplace issue, but it was someone putting on a brave front that in the end cost them their life, the environment they were in. And I think in the workplace, there is an onus on us as colleagues, as leaders, to be able to open dialogue, to have conversations, to create a safe space for people to share their experiences, their wants and their needs, in order for them to truly feel a part of the workplace as they should. Building psychological safety is so important. And I know your listeners will care about the mental health and well-being aspects. So I've got to add, a company like my own, Indeed, 11,000 odd employees globally. One of the things that was offered to all of us was the initiative to complete some mental health first aider training. I only took a couple of days, not having to give up tons and tons of time, to get an accreditation that enables you genuinely to spot those early signs of anxiety, depression. And I find that having completed that myself a little while ago now, it doesn't just help in the workplace. I can use that with family, with friends. So what a wonderful accreditation for my company to go and make available to me. And it's not that it's just going to make us happier and make us feel that we're treated worthwhile by our organization. You're going to save lives by such a simple initiative like that.
Seeing those signs, because, having that first conversation, that initial conversation, it could just be such a relief for the person just to be able to be heard and to speak about what is happening in their lives. It is affecting not only them, but it's affecting the company, the people that they're working with as well. And, you don't want, as you've said, for the worst scenario to happen just because people are being silent about these things.
Yeah, exactly that. And, it doesn't have to be investing in whole company-wide training if you're not quite at that point. It could be a time resource or a monetary problem to be the barrier between you making that happen. But simple things I've seen companies do, such as creating inclusion groups, inclusion resource groups, where people of a certain less represented demographic can come together to feel supported in a safe space, to have a conversation about their wants, their needs, their challenges, but not closing that group off to only that demographic, but making it open to allies to be able to join. So as an example, at Indeed, we have a plethora of groups, from Women at Indeed to BIG, the Black Inclusion Group. So I myself am not Black. I'm never going to fully comprehend the challenges that someone who's Black will face from their perspective. I can't truly empathize because I can't put myself in their shoes. But what I can do is I can go along, be a part of these conversations. I can listen, I can learn, and then I can understand that myself as a colleague, but also as a leader, how do I work best with colleagues from that community to make their lives easier and to help them feel included and show them that I see them and I hear them. And I am then in turn working with other leaders to build a benefit system internally that is going to benefit everyone, not just a certain profile or individual internally as well. So I think inclusion resource groups are a great first step. Another one I must add, and I'm seeing more companies do this now, is senior leaders going beyond just having a corporate statement to respond to a particular social issue, but instead actually individually sharing their thoughts, their opinions, their experience, being vulnerable as a leader. Because I think That true vulnerability and transparency on an individual level shows others in your business that you are a human when you're a leader, and helps them understand that those that are maybe steering the ship are good people with a good destination in mind. So yeah, leaders being more transparent and vulnerable, and inclusion resource groups, 2 simple tips I'd love to see more organisations take on.
So those are some things that maybe the employers can do. But I mean, for members of the LGBTQ plus community, if they're looking for a workplace, what are the best tips for evaluating if a certain workplace is truly inclusive?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we look at the labour market we're in right now, there are more opportunities for job seekers than there have been in the past. It's very tight for employers, but for job seekers, you've got more choice now than you might have had in the past. So use this time to do real due diligence in deciding where's right for you. Read job descriptions. Go beyond just the requirements. Think about the language being used. Is it very gendered language? Is it very masculine language? Well, maybe that's not going to be right for you. Think about the benefits that are being offered. Are they inclusive benefits, or are they benefits that, as I said before, meet that very specific profile of person? That might be a slight red flag. Us at Indeed, we are offered a benefit called Maven. This is a wonderful inclusive benefit that enables people to be able to be put in touch with experts to talk about fertility. So for me, for example, as a man, I can reach out very quickly, be put in touch with someone and talk about how to freeze my sperm, for example. The type of benefits that a lot of organizations might see as quite cutting edge, but actually they're just required now. Going beyond job descriptions, I think you should look at company websites, you should look at career sites, but be mindful, because companies are very smart and they will create content with an element maybe of tokenism, where they take certain demographics and push them to the front and center of their communications. Going one step beyond that, actually look at the type of language being used. Maybe look at Indeed, look at Glassdoor, and look at the reviews that are being left by current and previous employees talking about their experiences working for a given company. Because corporate communications, they're great, they're useful, but actually people like you, your peers, what they have to say about their experiences working for a particular company, that's going to be that little bit more authentic, a bit more of a true window in as to what it might be like to work there. And if you're getting to the interview stage, please do ask questions. Don't just be interviewed. Be almost an interviewer yourself. That's your opportunity to ask the question, how has that business supported LGBTQIA plus communities, for example? What kind of benefits are being offered? Is it an inclusive environment? Don't just give me a yes. Tell me why it's inclusive. And then it's your job as a candidate to decide, well, is this the right company for you? Get in touch with people already working there. If it's the professional world you're in, think about going onto LinkedIn, reaching out to a particular hiring manager or someone already working there. I think you have to do your due diligence these days in order to decide which company's right for you.
I don't think that's a very good point. I suppose in previous times we would be the ones answering the questions, but really turn things around and actually ask the questions and to find out if it is the right fit for you.
Definitely, because look, Richard, companies will check your social media when you apply for a new job. A lot of them will do that. However, you should be checking their social media. What are they posting out on Instagram and social channels? What are their employees saying? Do they have a hashtag? Have a look at that. Look at the imagery. Is that inclusive imagery? At Indeed, for example, we've got hashtag Inside Indeed. Our employees use it when they're talking about what it's like to work for us. The company wouldn't post using that hashtag. That's for me to post to say what I'm up to on a day-to-day basis. And then future candidates can look at that and think, well, is that the company I want to work for based on the content curated by the employees as opposed to the company?
And just remind us again where we can go to find out more.
There is tons of information on Indeed, on Glassdoor, but if you're not so familiar with our platform and where to find it, then simply go to your favorite search engine and just type in Indeed Career Guide. And what you'll find is a platform including interview tips, how to prepare, what questions to ask, how to navigate finding a job. There's a lot to look through now. Career development. Maybe you're not looking to join a new company, but you want to develop the career you already have in the role that you've got. Go on to the Career Guide on Indeed and you'll find loads of information that hopefully will help you in terms of taking that next step.
Danny Stacey, Head of Employer Insights at Indeed UK. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thanks a lot.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health. More than 2 in 5 people experience hair loss at some point in their lives, and this can cause feelings of embarrassment and anxiety. Nearly half said they were devastated when they first realised, while 7% said they felt suicidal. Most attribute their hair loss to episodes of stress and poor mental and physical health, something that research has shown to be true. To discuss this further is Jordanna Corbella, who's a hairstylist and author of The Mindful Hairdresser. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Great, thanks for having me.
So, Jordanna, how does our hair affect our everyday lives?
Well, hair forms part of our identity and, we use it to express ourselves. It's so much more than just an organ. And I think for us, or as a hairdresser, I really have noticed throughout the years of being a hairdresser in my career, how much it can trigger psychological impact when we do start to lose it or when we're not totally happy with our hair. So I think it's really important to kind of open up this conversation, particularly for women, to remove the stigma attached to talking about hair loss, because the staggering statistic is that 45% of women will at some point in their lives experience hair loss.
And why are so few aware that it can affect women as well as men?
Well, that's a really good question. The only way I could answer that is to say, I guess, because of the stigma, but also, a lot of the traditional remedies for hair loss out there are aimed and designed purely for the male physiology. And some of the ingredients can be staggeringly toxic for the female physiology, including the reproductive system. So I think that's why we don't really talk about it in women.
There's obviously the physical effects, but there is the mental effects. So can you just explain from your research what you found about the mental impact on hair loss?
Absolutely. So the first thing that happens when we notice hair loss is, of course, we stress about it and our cortisol levels rise and we might have lack of sleep. And these are all things that do contribute towards hair loss. So it's about kind of identifying the underlying issues and the causes and the symptoms and adopting more of a 360 approach to kind of address what could be going on. And I think that's why, as a brand ambassador for Vegamore, I really do feel so passionate and strongly about the brand, because we talk about nutrition, we talk about scalp conditions and scalp care and identifying your scalp as an extension of your skin and keeping it clean and aerated. And then there's so many factors, and we have to adopt a multifaceted approach to this.
And is it really a case of treating things early? And would you suggest, if you are experiencing this, and again, it is something that can be embarrassing to some people, but is it really a case of speaking to a doctor, speaking to the GP as an initial first port of call?
Well, funnily enough, the first port of call should be your hairdresser, because by the time you have noticed hair loss, there's about 37% of it that's already gone. Your hairdresser will notice it before you. And we do have a beautiful relationship with clients. The client-hairdresser relationship is so trustworthy. We're the unofficial therapists of the world. So I would say talk to your hairdresser, because you've already got a great relationship with them and they will make observations that you may not. And again, I've seen it in the salon, I've seen it with my lovely clients, that it really does impact, your relationships at work, your relationships at home, and your confidence, how you see yourself, how you perform. So from a mental aspect, I think start with your hairdresser.
And I suppose they can, as you say, identify things that may be causing it. It may be something simple, some of the treatments that they're using. Are there different things that could be affecting them initially?
Absolutely. The female body goes through so many changes and many of them are hormonal. And the great thing is that fortunately we can reawaken those dormant follicles, and it happens post breastfeeding. We'll notice that the hairline does grow back. So the good news is that there is a lot we can do. However, prevention is key. So let's start early and really look after our scalp and hair.
And there is a thing called hair wellness. Can you tell me a bit about what that is?
Absolutely. So hair wellness is all about adopting a 360 approach, holistic approach to optimal hair growth. And that would mean considering everything from your diet and nutritional content to your routine, lack of sleep, cortisol levels and stress. And I think when we look at the amygdala, which is the part of our brain responsible for the fight or flight mode, a lot of the time that is what we are normally activated to do in everyday life. Unfortunately, the everyday stresses of life. So it's about kind of looking at everything and all the factors that could contribute to this and addressing them topically and also internally.
There may be external factors, there may be things, as you say, that you're going through to do with the body, maybe it's experiences that you're having in relationships or with work. All these things can be causing the anxiety that may lead to these physical effects.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just talking to your hairdresser about what might be going on at home, what might be stressing you, what might be causing your lack of sleep deprivation is actually really helpful just in itself.
And why is hair wellness popular at the moment?
I suppose for years we've kind of put a band-aid on it and we've looked for quick fix and gratifications, and we've not necessarily addressed underlying causes and starting from like the prevention side of it. So I guess I would say it's because we haven't really been looking at healthy hair growth. We've been only looking at putting a band-aid and finding a quick fix for things.
And you've identified some of these already, but just so people are aware, what can we really do to curb and prevent the impact of hair loss?
So prevention is absolutely key. Speak to your hairdresser. Look after your scalp. Your scalp is such a delicate, beautiful, complicated, intricate ecosystem that needs to be in the right environment for your hair to pierce through it and for your hair to be optimum growth. And of course, be more mindful of the ingredients that you're purchasing. Avoid parabens and silicons because these may have a nice cosmetic feel, but they are so harmful for your scalp and they shouldn't be used in excess. So we need to be more mindful of plant-based ingredients and looking at brands such as Vegamore to do that.
And where can we find out more information on some of the things that we've been talking about today?
You can find more information on vegamore.com.
So people can go on the website. But for now, Jordanna Corbella, who's a hairstylist and the author of The Mindful Hairdresser, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
That's all for today's show. If you missed anything, you can download the podcast right now. We're on Apple, Google or Spotify podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. Just search for A Space to Speak Your Mind. We'll be on there. If you like us, subscribe. You can hear the next show as soon as it's available. And we'd love to have your thoughts on the show as well. For support and more information for better mental health, you can visit Cornwall Mind at the website cornwallmind.org or call the Mind helpline during office hours on 0300 123 3393. That's 0300 123 3393. And you can call the Samaritans anytime for free on 116 123 or just email jo@samaritans.org. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about on next month's show, or you just want to get in contact, you can email aspacetospeakyourmind@gmail.com. And we're also on Twitter @aspacetospeak, and you can like us on our Facebook page. I'm Richard. Have a fantastic July, and I hope you'll join me next time on A Space to Speak Your Mind.
A Space to Speak Your Mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.